So hey guys, my name is Mani and I'm going to start episode 5 for building superstack template. And in this video we are going to implement the production server and the production build. In the last video we have developed two servers. One was API server based on the Elysia and one was UI development server uh, running for solid.js. So let's start the server again and check if it is working or not. So the task was Deno task dev. Both servers are running. One is on localhost 5000, that's the UI development server based on solid.js, and one is localhost 3000, that is our API server. Okay, so let's localhost 5000 and Elysia. It is our API server. So while development, there are a lot of UI changes that occurs like when you develop any application. So that's why we are running this server as our prime server on development only to do all the changes. Like if I have been doing any changes, like if I have to change some value, like I'm saying welcome to um, and saving that, and then go to F2, and we can see the changes has been live reloaded here using the hot model replacement feature. So if we don't use this, it will not work. That's why we are having two servers on the development, one solely for the development purpose, for the UI development, and where we are consuming also the API from the backend. But what will happen like once we deploy the application on production? So first thing, in the development we have our backend at localhost 3000 and frontend at localhost 5000. Okay, and from frontend we are consuming the APIs. Okay, this is the setup for development. In production we don't send or we don't run the UI server. Okay, we just build the whole bundle. Okay, so RSBuild will build whole front-end app, and that will have, that will include static asset and CSS, JS, right? And it will be all connected using index.html. That that is the that will uh, output through the build. Okay, what we are going to do for the production, so we will run only in the production, we will have only the Elysia backend. Okay, and once we hit the index path, okay, so we have to target this index.html file from the front-end build. Okay, in the deno.json file we have the dev server only, and the dev API, and the build is for frontend. And now we will create one more command or one more task for serve. So in this we will serve the backend. So the command for this will have Deno task, and for now just run this API server and add the dependencies. The dependency will be build. So the build command is building the front end um, with production mode. Okay, so the production mode is more optimized version of the application. We can also use the development build, but that we don't use for production because uh, the size of the development build is regularly large. If something happening there, or if some error is going on, so we can check with the development build. That is easy, but we don't need to do that with the production build. So that's why our production build must be optimized, less in size. We have given the dependencies as build, so it will first build the front end with the production mode, and then uh, run this command that will run our API server. Okay, and let's add a description for this. So we have created um, serve task where we are going to build the front end with the production mode, and then we will run the API server, run the server. So it will first build your front end, and you see the build is exported to this directory dist. So if we see this directory here, we can see the assets that has been built. So there are some static assets, the CSS, JS, okay, and then we have the index.html output from the build. And if we if we format this file, so we can check uh, this file is referencing the script, the JS file that has been built, and the CSS also linked here. Okay, so this is the output from the build. Now if we see the index.ts file, that is the API server. So for now, there the index path is just giving the output as hello Elysia for now. um what we needed that front end index root or index component here. So basically what we have to do that, um, if we somehow send this file, the index.html file, through this URL, so we can then view it will be the similar view that we were having at the development server side. So the same page we can see then on our API index root. Okay, so we can serve any file, the patterns, the recipe, HTML, static, okay, and a single file. So for serving the single file, you want to return just single, you can use file, okay. So we are using the file, okay, but might be we are mentioning the directory wrong, okay. So let's reload again. We got something. If we check here, we have some errors, but one success has status 200. So we are getting the file, and you can see the content here. It is the same content that we have seen on the build output from the front end, okay. But what are these errors? So just check. So this is requesting the JS, this is also requesting the JS, another, and this is requesting the CSS, and all are getting error. Why? Why we are getting, when we are getting the response, the HTML, so it will start fetching the links, those are listed here, the scripts, the link or the CSS, but not getting. So why it is happening? Because it is trying to request the URL as localhost 3000, and then the URL, the SRC that has been listed here, okay, for all the case. So the target URL for these files localhost 3000, okay, but we haven't seen any routes uh, we have listed so far for these files, okay. So what is the alternative? Like if we also uh, create the path for these files, so we can uh, get those files too, like this one. If we create a path for this file, okay, so just copy the path and create one more get request and provide the file directly. It is inside. Basically this is just the file path is same, just we have to provide the path, okay. So for CSS we have written a path and provide the file directly or serve the file on that path. So let's check. So we got the CSS file now, if you see, and the status is success and response we are getting, okay. But if you see the path very closely, so have you seen this, the has before the extension? What does that mean? So what happened when we build the application? So every time when you build, it will give you a new hash, so you can uh, distinguish between the old files and the new files. But why I'm telling you all this? Because we just created a path for the CSS file, but what will happen like when we create a new build, if we have done some changes, like we've added a new class only, and when we try to build, so we have a new hash now. If you compare this one, okay. So every time when you, obviously when you deploy, you have to push some new changes. So if you have done some new changes, so the hash will be different. So it will not match your path. So you cannot mention the path for static assets because they can change like whenever you deploy. Okay, that's why you have to expose your asset directory. So for state serving the static assets, we have to add this plugin. So let's add this using the Deno. Okay, so we have installed this library, and then how to use that. So you have to import this plugin and then use as this, and then so by default the static plugin default folder is public and registered with slash public prefix. But in our case we have um, distributed our build in this directory dist. Okay, so 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 we have to, for us the public directory is this one, dist. Okay, uh, so for the static plugin, the default folder is public and registered with slash public prefix. It means it just search the public assets or the static assets here in the public directory. Okay, so what we have to do, we have to change this public to dist. Okay, so how we can do that? The assets is public, and we have to change this to dist. So the assets is dist now, and the prefix is public, so slash public. In our case we have the dist, and inside the dist we have the static. Our assets are inside this, so for us the prefix will be slash dist slash static. Okay, and remove this one from here and run the server again. Okay, we got some error. Why? The default folder for static files is public. Okay, in our case that is static, so the assets will be dist slash static, and the prefix, this is the prefix that is slash public, so that's why the assets are like slash public slash file slash public slash nested slash the file name. But in our case the prefix will be static, cause that's why if you see here the static css and the file name. are here the static JS and the file name. So in our case, the prefix is static only. Okay, sorry for the confusion. Now it is all set. Okay, we got that. We got the responses for this slash static slash JS. So that it is trying to fetch from the directory that is the dist slash static, and similarly here, and this is the API. So there is one more thing, the API. So now it is calling the API as slash API. So if you can just recall this thing here. So we were using uh, so in the index path we were fetching the slash API, and we have configured this to target this path, and that path was the API server path, if you remember, and this application was on the port 5000, and we were targeting these kind of path, and we were proxying it to target it to 3000. So this is working fine for us in production build, and that's why we are getting the request URL as localhost 3000 from the server as the base, and slash API as the build is running on that server. Okay, so restart the server, we hit the server, so we are getting whole application running the front end build running at the backend server and on the index root. Okay, but there is one issue. When you hit this, the root path, you get the whole JS bundle that is rendering this application. Okay, and with the whole bundle you get the inside the bundle we have the components and the links, or the router paths. So that's why it is rendering. But when you get inside here and now reload this, so it will hit this URL at our backend that is not present at the backend server. We don't have any GET request for this path. That's why we are getting the not found. Okay. So what we have to do to resolve that? If we hit this file or this path, the index root that we have just handled, we have handled this root path where we are serving this file, and that will automatically fetch other bundle too, the solid.js bundle, the CSS file and assets. Okay, so that's why it is working, but we haven't handled this root, so we have to handle this root. But we also, like, we cannot handle for every name, right? So some prefix we can, if we can handle some prefix, like if we serve this component here this way, so we will have other names too, like the dinosaur ABC, or like the dinosaur XYZ. So if we handle this only, so we can manage for all. Okay, so what we have to handle here, we have to serve our HTML file, and then when it will fetch the HTML file here, it will load the JS bundle also, and inside the JS bundle then it will try to find the route that must have present at the routes that we need to mention at the front end part. So if we handle there, so it will find from the bundle and render it as render that particular component on the screen. Okay, so let's do this thing, then you will get a better idea. So we will add this prefix first. Okay, at the front end and run the development first. Okay, so go to the development routes and then change the path this way and add the index file, make the path similarly, and that's it for front end. So if we run Deno task dev, we have again two server, and we are just checking after changing the path prefixes it must work at the development. So it is working. Okay, now we have to handle that prefix to serve this file. Okay, once we will have this file on that particular server, like get dinosaur also provide the same file, so it will load all the bundle js and the static files. There is no build available, just build this. Okay, so when we hit this url directly, so it will come, the request will come here because we are just running this server. So the request will come here, and from here we will serve this file again, the index file. And when we will serve this file, so it will automatically fetch all these resources. So the application bundle it will fetch, and once we will have this bundle, so basically we will have our routes also, and inside route it will then try to find the url that we have requested at the browser. So it will then search the same url here, and then it will render this component, and from this component it will render all the uh, elements, and then it will also call the API. Okay, so just check. So we have opened the serve, and now if we try to reload this, it is not working. Why it is not working? It must work now. Must work now. Okay, cause the path must be exact. So we are not requesting this, right? We are requesting something like name, something like this. Okay, so the exact pattern we need to provide to access the url. Okay, so once we will have the exact pattern, and then we will reload this file, this path again. So now we can see there is no error. We got that particular component here rendered, and we have also called the API, we got the response and with the detail we have listed here. So if we go back, it is working fine. If we hit this path and going each of the path, it is working. If we go that to some path and we reload the application, it will serve the HTML file again, render that bundle or fetch that bundle linked to that particular file, and then when the bundle will serve successfully, it will try to find that exact path inside the router at the front end side, and then it will render that particular component here. Okay, So that's it for this video, and stay tuned with me for some new videos on this series. Thank you so much.